artists, welcome to Art with Miss Walsh at Home Edition. This week we're drawing portraits. A portrait is a drawing of a face. A self-portrait is a drawing of our own face. All faces look different, but they start with the same general map. So this video will help you figure out where each feature goes on the face to make it look more realistic and more like yourself or the person that you're drawing. You need something to draw on and something to draw with. I recommend a pencil with a good eraser and then a Sharpie for when you're done. And remember, artists, you can pause and rewatch the video as many times as you need. Let's go ahead and get started with our portraits. Okay guys, let's go ahead and get started with our drawing. I have something to draw on, so I have a white piece of paper here, and I also have a pencil with an eraser. I recommend that you use a pencil with an eraser for face drawing because it does require a lot of erasing. So remember, every face has the same general proportions, so we are going to create a map for ourselves, and then we can go in and create the facial features. You can customize the way that a face looks, the way that your portrait looks, by changing the shape and the size of the facial features, but in general, every face follows the same basic structure. So this video is to help you figure that out and to draw the guidelines for yourself. So we're going to go ahead and get started. Remember that you can always pause and stop and rewind the video as many times as you need. But to begin, we want to create an oval in the center of our paper, and we don't want it to be too small. We want to give ourselves a bit of an area to work with, and we don't want it to be too large because we want to have room for the hair. So you need to, I would suggest, hold your pencil at the top or the end and sort of start by making an arc and just try to have it be as even as possible. I'm drawing light, so if you can't see it, I'm going to go ahead and trace over this in just a minute. And then I would kind of come down to a little bit of a point because our face is an oval and our chin tends to be a little bit narrower than the top part of our head. So I have just a general face shape. Okay, and then from here, if you want, we can go ahead and we can create a neck. Maybe it's not that long. Maybe we want to add a shirt. So you can create a simple collar and then go off the page. Very simple. Okay, so what we want to do is create guidelines for ourselves. So we need to bisect this shape with a vertical line in the center. So you can draw just a solid line if you want, or you can draw a dotted line. I'm just going to go ahead and I'm going to draw a solid line in what I think is the center. It doesn't have to be perfect. I don't want to draw it too dark. Okay, and now I'm going to draw another line going horizontally. So we've made a vertical line, and now we want a horizontal line that intersects at about the halfway point. And if you can, don't do it too dramatically, but make a slight curve to this line. So what do I mean? I mean this. Doesn't have to be perfect, but a line about halfway down. So we've made two perpendicular lines, and we want to make another line just like this in the halfway point between here, where it meets, and here, your chin. So we are going to cut this space in half again with another slightly curved vertical line. I'll darken them so you can see them. Okay. So these are our general guidelines for every face. And it might look a little alien. You might be wondering why this space is so large when we go to draw the eyes, which will wind up along this line here, but that's the way that it is. So every face should first start with this general map. And from here, you can add the features. So we want to continue with this method, and we want to use little guidelines and tick marks and dots to help ourselves. So we're going to create 2 small marks along this line on either side of the center mark. I would say maybe about 1 inch or 2 on mine. 1 inch on this side, 1 inch on this side, maybe less. You want them to be equal. So this is the distance between your eyes. And we want to make about the same distance that we made here, right here. So a tip, you could take your pencil and you can measure. You can put your nail and measure. So we want to make another little guideline. Now we're going to do the same thing over here. You can just eyeball it if you want. Or you can do that measuring trick and make sure. Okay, now from these lines, we're going to turn these into our eyeballs. So we know that an eye, a basic eye, is just a football shape and an almond shape and oval shape. So you can take an arc, a curved line, and you can just connect these points. And if you want, this is what I do. I want to try to make our faces symmetrical, right? So what we have on the left side occurs on the right side. So I like to try to line it up. So I'm going to make myself a little guideline. I need to make this arc touch that, and that way it'll be in line with this eye. Now remember, I'm not a robot, so they're slightly different. Okay, so we've got the top of our eyes using a curved line. It curves downward because that's the top of our eyelid. We're just making a basic shape. Now we're going to go ahead and we're going to flip this line around and we're going to close up our eyes. So you don't want to go too long and too far down. You just want a slight curve. And darken the line. Since I am using pencil, I want to make sure that you can see it. So I'm going to do the same thing over here. Looking good. It's looking alien, I know, but it's in the right spots. So that's the key to drawing a realistic looking face. You want to get everything in the right spot, and then we can go back and we can change the shape and we can add some details. So we are going to leave our eyes looking just like that. Now, what we can do is make another set of guidelines. So from the center of your eyeballs, you want to drop down straight, and you want to make yourself a little mark on this line. You want to find the center point, and you want to drop down with your pencil, and you want to make yourself a little mark. Now, this might be a little too wide, or maybe our neck is a little too skinny. We'll see when we're all done. A face is like a puzzle. So these points mark the corners of our mouth. And if you take your fingers and you put them on either sides of the corners of your mouth and you bring your fingers all the way up until they meet your eyes, you will find that, give or take a centimeter or two, or a millimeter or two, excuse me, your fingers end up in the center of your eyeballs. And that's typical for a face. So we have these guidelines here. Now, in the center point of this space is where we want to start drawing the nose. So you might be familiar with something like this. let's see. I want to make sure I'm in the center of each of these spaces. From here to here is the distance. So I want to find the center point. And I want to make maybe a little line for myself. I want to come from here to here, find the center point, drop down, make a little line for myself. Okay, so you might be familiar with a nose that maybe looks something just simply like this. Well, we can use that as our start. So we want to have our center point, and then we want to kind of put two tiny little hooks on either ends. We want to take this line and we want to curve it down, not too dramatically. And then we want to fill in this tiny little space. Okay. Now from here, we want to curve this line back up, and we want to go towards this guideline that we drew. So I like to make it even, so I'm going to come over and make another guideline. I'm going to scoop this down and around, and I'm going to come up to that point as much as possible. Okay. So it's almost like a W shape, a very flat, long W. It scoops down and it curves back up, and then it curves back down like a smile, and then it curves down again like two tiny little frowns over here, and then it scoops back over and around and up, over and around and up. Okay, so from here, we have our nose. Now we need our mouth. So there are several different shapes of a mouth, but in general, we can either draw sort of that same arc line that we drew here, this oval shape, or we can do something like this. So along this center point, I am going to create a very slight curved line. I'm curving it up like a very tiny smile. And then from here, I'm going to come down. I'm going to curve downward, and I'm going to go towards that mark. So I want to match the height of my other curve. That's a little too pointy, guys. Okay. Now, we can very simply make a curved line from dot to dot. We have the general outline of the mouth. Okay, now we need the ears. So our ears go right in this convenient little space between the guideline that we used for our eye and the guideline that we used for our mouth. So you can make a little hook at the top, just a little curved line, a little bump, and then you want to keep it, take a line, and you want to keep it as close to the side of the face as you can. And then you want to make an upward curve, a smile line, for your earlobe. So again, you want to make a little hook. You want to bring the line down. You want to follow the curve of your face. And then make another little hook back towards your cheek. Okay. I'm going to hold it up so we can get closer. Okay, guys, so this is the general structure of every face that you draw. We are not going to get into the hair because that is another very important feature to make this picture look like yourself. There are several different hairstyles that you can choose from, but in this general space, you want to draw your hairstyle. So things that you can change, the shape of your hairline, you can extend, maybe your hair is nice and voluminous or poofy and it extends up into this area. There are endless possibilities, but in general, you want to make sure that you have enough space left for your forehead. And we tend to make our faces our forehead's very small because we make the mistake of drawing our eyes at the top of the oval instead of in the center where they belong. So I am going to go ahead and trace over the lines that I want to keep with this marker, and then I'm going to erase the guidelines for you so that you can see what we end up with when you erase them. Okay, so here's what I've ended up with. Now I want to show you how to add a bit of detail to the eyes. And if you haven't yet, go ahead and take a look at the PowerPoint presentation that I have linked for this project for you, because there is a whole section of examples. This one is the eye, so we'll be using this. There are several different lip styles that you can select from or get inspiration from. I show you a few examples of how to use the guidelines and how to start the lip, and how to line it up with the nose. And then these two right here, these are some lip views from the side. So those are very valuable. And there's also several different nose styles, which are very helpful too. If you don't like this style of nose, there are a few others to choose from. So definitely check that out. But I want to do the eyes for you. So this is just a general shape. And I noticed that they're not exactly symmetrical. So I could have done a little bit better, but because I traced over them, it is what it is, guys. So you might be familiar with this, just this, a circle inside, and then maybe you've drawn something like this in the past. Okay, well, that's our general start. We need to build from here. So the first thing that I am going to do is I am going to add another line up here. So I decided to make sort of like a J on its side. I could also do up from here and just add another layer to this eye shape, or a combo of both. So that's a detail that we need because that's the eyelid line. And then from here, we can add some eyelashes. So this could be a girl or a boy, depending on how you want to go with it, but we all have eyelashes. So add a few lines. You could make them separate. You could make them very close together. However you want to do it. Okay, now from here, we need to create an eyebrow shape. So you want to keep your eyebrows in line, the beginning of them, with the corners of your eyes. And they need to curve around towards the corners of your eyes. And so you can just do, you don't want to go too far up. This is your forehead. You want to stay close to your eye because the space between this edge of your eyelid where your eyelashes are growing from and your eyebrow is less than what you think it is. So you don't want to put them way up here. They need to go close. I will just start with the very basic curve. And then I'm going to try to match it. And I'm going to come back around. And I'm going to close it up. I can add texture to make it look more like hair by using those same little lines again. I could color them completely in. I could make a few stray hairs and then I could color them in if I wanted. Practice. Try different ways. Maybe you have a lot of eyebrow hair, maybe you have a little bit of eyebrow hair. You decide what looks better. Also, it's your drawing, so you can change whatever you'd like to fit your needs and to make you happy. Okay, so we're looking good so far. Let's go ahead and with this marker, I'm going to add some other little lines that are close together, just in the same way, around the edge of the eyeball. So I can sort of make little zigzags very close together all around the edges. Okay. You can make a couple, get closer to the center, but you want to spread them apart. Now, with a pencil or a crayon, you could, if you had dark eyes, color in this area. I would use a colored pencil or even a crayon if you had it. If you have brown eyes, that would be really pretty with all the black underneath it. If you have light eyes, you could use two combinations of colors like a dark blue marker and a lighter crayon. But if you just had black and white, that looks a little more realistic. Okay. Now, let's talk about this line that I drew for the mouth. I want you to notice, so instead of drawing something that looks like this, I made a curve. So the line in the middle, it's slightly curved upward, and then it swings back down and the curve flips. So it's almost like a tiny little frown, and then it curves up into two little smiles, and then it goes back into little frowns. But these and the edges, you need to make them a little bit flatter. You don't want this to look like a wavy line here, but that helps it look a little more real, having these areas in the lip. And then the next thing I want to call your attention to is I very, very slightly and just a little bit darkened the area of the nostrils. So if you drew this shape in these tiny little frown areas and these little mountain areas, you could color just that darkened area, and that will account for the shadow of your nostril. You can add other details like lines under the eyes. You could add this right here. You could add a detail for your chin. You could add more of these lines if you were older to account for wrinkles, or you don't have to draw them if you don't like that look. But this is a pretty general looking face. And I think depending on how you tailor the features, this could go girl or boy. So it's just depending on you and what you are wanting to draw. You next week will receive a video about adding hair. So guys, please go ahead and practice. Send me your practice drawings. Let me know if I can help you at all. But anyways, hope you've enjoyed this tutorial and get to drawing, artists.